Okay. This work is carried with my co-authors, Roberta Ferrari and Cinzia Giorgetta, and is within the project Viscoso, that is about providing some elements to model the so-called socio-technical systems, namely systems that are inhabited by human and artificial agents, and we need tools to represent the specificity of both types of agents. So within this work, the aim of this paper is to introduce a number of elements that allow us to deal with what has been called cognitively biased decision, namely real agent decision that might depend on several factors that are quite different from the standard abstract model of expected utility theory and game theory. And in particular, we want to focus on the description of the influence of emotions in decision making. The tool we are going to use to do this little exercise of knowledge representation is the foundational ontology called DOLCE, that allows to describe a large amount of pieces of information. And as we will see, it allows to introduce a number of elements to describe emotions and effects of emotion in decision making. So we start by using some results in neuroeconomics that shows that real agents, human agents, often exhibits a behavior that is very different from expected utility theory predictions. And in particular, there are results in neuroeconomics that shows that emotion like disappointment and regrets affects deeply the risk attitudes of agents. So in this work, we start from these results that are taken from the literature on behavioral economics and neuroeconomics. And we try to represent this distinction within our ontological model. And so intuitively, the distinction between regret and disappointment is that both are caused by some unfortunate outcome. But regret is based on the assumption that the agent is responsible for his choice, where disappointment may depend on someone else's choice or some other consideration. And the results in neuroeconomics shows that an agent that is in a status of regret is going to get riskier, to make riskier decisions, whereas disappointment does not affect his attitudes toward risk. So the tool that we want to use to analyze this thing is DOLCE, and it allows it's a general, formal, and foundational ontology that basically partition all the objects of these courses in the following main categories. So endurance, that are called objects, perdurance, that are events, and individual qualities and abstract. So I cannot enter the details of these things, but the idea is that we can represent emotion as a particular type of mental objects, and so it's plugged into the object category, whereas plans and actions, course of actions, can be described within a particular type of representation of description of events. And then we can also represent the likelihood, so the probability of the case of an outcome to be the case within this framework. So basically what we do in the paper is to try to represent the BDI model, belief, desire, intention model, within this ontological framework. And, okay. So, just to give you an idea of what we do in the paper, basically we are able with these tools to distinguish between regret and disappointment that are for us applied to an object X. X is an object of regret, of disappointment, and relates the object with the agent I. And so the formula in this, on the right-hand side, the first ones are to type X and I. So I is an agentive physical object, so only an agentive physical object can experience regret or disappointment. And the object of regret or disappointment is typed as the outcome of the plan. The main distinction between the two things is that regret is caused by the outcome of the plan when the agent has BDI on this plan, so he has a belief, desire, and intention to carry through this plan, Whereas disappointment is same thing, but the agent has no BDI on it. It's not necessary that the agent has BDI on it. And with this element, we can provide a definition of to having BDI on a particular plan, in the case where this is the best thing that we can do, but also in the case in which in a previous state of regret has forced us to choose a more risky plan, which is not the best according to the expected utility theory. So what we wanted to do was to apply some elements of ontological analysis in order to have a representation of emotion like the regret, disappointment within the big picture of the knowledge representation provided by the ontology. And then with these little elements, we want to carry through our analysis to show how other emotion affects agents' decisions, to go a bit into the point that it was just sketched in the paper, so how does emotion affect the risk attitude, namely the probability distribution that the agent views on the space of the events. And then we want to try to settle this framework within a multi-agent world, let's say, viewing how this expectation of different agents may be coordinated, and to try to understand whether there are procedural constraints we can put on the decision problem in order to cope with this cognitive bias. Thank you. So, question now?
So, yeah,